All right, thank you very much. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. It almost feels like not a complete meeting since we don't have 300 people sitting out in the chairs tonight. Welcome to the Apex Town Council meeting. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for April the 3rd, and we do have all council members in attendance for the record. I'd like to start off by bringing the invocation. If you would, bow your heads with me for a moment. Lord, we thank you for the freedom that we live in this country. Lord, we thank you that you have guided us through 240-some years of growth as a nation. Lord, we pray that you will continue to give us wisdom. We pray that we will have a heart to serve the people of Apex, that we would understand that everything we do and everything we talk about in this context, Lord, is for them. Help us to have that heart of a servant. And we thank you for those who fight for our freedom and those who protect us. We pray your safety upon them. We pray you will comfort those who have lost loved ones or have had those who have been injured on our behalf. Pray for comfort and healing for them. We pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
If you would, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. We do have some public hearings tonight and also a public forum time. So there are two things I hope you brought in here if you care to participate. One is the agenda. The agenda is the white stapled packet that was outside. If you missed one, feel free to go get one now. There's no penalty for getting up in the middle and walking out. Second, there is a yellow sheet that contains the guidelines for speaking during public forum and public hearings. It is about the same color as the yellow sheets on which you need to sign your name should you decide you wish to speak during one of those times. We will be using those yellow sheets to call people up, so if your name's not on it, I won't be able to call your name. As I said, we have some public hearings tonight, so please make sure you sign the correct sheet because each sheet is different. With that, I will now turn to the time of consent agenda. It is my understanding that we have two modifications to the consent agenda. Number one, from the town attorney, consent agenda number 3 is being removed completely from tonight's agenda, so we shall not consider it. All right, and the second one is consent number 7. As I see, there is a modification to the cover sheet, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you just quickly point out the difference for us?
So in red text, includes now the wording land use map amendment from office employment to office employment industrial employment.
All right, very good. So with that, those two changes, I'll ask if there's, well, I guess I should say consent, so that everybody knows. Consent agenda are the items that we typically vote on in one single motion, and they're considered to be non-controversial. So as a government, we become more efficient if we can do them all in one big swoop. So that's what we're doing now. If any council member wishes to pull an item to discuss later, they certainly may do so. So at this time, I'll ask if a council member wishes to do that or make a motion to approve the consent agenda with those two changes.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with those two changes. Number 3 removed and number 7 with the minor modification. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, consent agenda with those modifications has passed. We now move to the setting of the regular agenda. At this time, we will review the remainder of the agenda to see if there are any changes that we wish to make before we set this for the agenda for the night's meeting. Let me quickly refer to the town manager and the town attorney to see if there are any verbal recommendations for changes.
Yes, sir.
All right, not hearing any, I'll ask the council if there is a motion to approve the regular agenda as printed.
So moved. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a couple of seconds in order to pass the regular agenda as it's printed. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, this time we now move into public forum. Public forum is a time where we get to hear you speak to us. We have a 3-minute time allotment so that everybody gets a chance to speak. We found that most people can make their solid point within a couple of minutes. So with that, I'll turn to the public forum sheet, and I see I have 2 names who have signed up. So Mr. Stan Thompson, please come on up. And it looks like Amber Grode. Okay, all right, you'll be second, so just be ready when Mr. Thompson is ready. Mr. Thompson, just before you begin, I'll remind you we have the green, yellow, red system here. And as you start, please state your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Stan Thompson. I live at 3033 White Claw Circle. I want to speak to the council tonight basically about consent item number 11, which just passed, set a hearing on April 17th regarding UDO changes for possible lights, exterior lights. I'd like to talk about preserving the nature of our environment here in Apex, which includes darkness at night. Work and play during the day is okay, but the evenings, they should be reserved for our rest. The general purpose of the UDO, as in section 1.3.1, supports this idea by addressing items such as safety, peace, and comfort. Section 8.6 of the UDO, which deals with lighting, primarily is to enhance our safety. As an example, to try to minimize light pollution in Apex, let's take a look at section 8.64J of the UDO, which bans tube and string lights except for holidays. The applicant, who is going to file the proposed amendment, wants to amend J of the UDO according to their application. The applicant, in essence, has installed floodlights on their property and without getting prior approval from the town's planning director. Their proposal is a major culture change for Apex. Do we become like a city like New York City, which never sleeps? They're only interested in themselves because they've already kind of spent the money, but they didn't do their due diligence to understand what Apex UDO is before they did this. They want the town to conform to them. They don't want to conform to the town. They're asking that the council, part of their UDO changes, is to specify that there will be a special use permit given. This concept is not very good because this would allow for illogical, disorderly development and create zones of spotting. This is a major theme change for the town, and I think it'll create a lot of noise and pollution if we go this way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Grode?
Hi, thank you.
Please state your name and
Hi,
address
thank you.
as you start.
I'm Amber Crone, 421 Fairview Road, Apex.
Okay.
And I guess my time's starting now, so I just wanted to ask, we have an easement in our yard, or our area, and there was some Town of Apex public works that needed to be done, and when that was done, our front yard was tore up, which is fine, but I mean, but they replanted and they seeded and they did great. The team was wonderful, but we at Zoya seed is not an option. We were told only fescue is, and fescue in this climate is not really doesn't really work well, and so we gave up on it. And so we were going to try some Zoya because that's what we went to because of the restrictions and stuff, I guess, or it's just hard to, anyway, sorry. And so, but you can't do Zoya, if you have it done by the Town of Apex because of they were redoing it for us, and it looks great. It so looks great. And, I passed out some before pictures, and I don't really have very many, like, good before pictures. I mean, it's the snow and stuff, but, I mean, so I just went through and some before and then after pictures, and you can see, like, the yard, like, it was great. I don't have any pictures of when it was really wonderful, but, and I have, the second one, or the first one, was, our bills for the water, and we really tried. We had a huge water bill, an outstandingly enormous water bill, and so it looked great, but we couldn't really keep that up, I mean, for that month, and so we really tried, and it looked great, and we tried, but that's part of the fescue problem, so I wanted to see if Zoya or if other types of seed could be implemented and optional for any work that needs to be done from the town of Apex. And also, if the town of Apex could help and put some money towards a Take Two on our yard, and that would be awesome. But
I'm sorry, to what?
a new try. So we have to redo our yard.
Oh, she means
Oh,
try
I know,
again.
like take
Yeah,
two.
like Take Two, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, kids.
That's all right. That's all right.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, just for, I mean, not all of it, because we might have to do, because we're gonna try and do Zoya, and I heard that Zoya seed, like, gets eaten a lot and doesn't really last, and so we're gonna have to do sod, and that's just really expensive, but the fescue is just, we had fescue, and it was great before, and you can see the before pictures, and it was fine, it was established, but just trying to get it to go again was just quite a challenge, and we got lots of compliments on it, lots, but then it is what it is now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Grode.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do is ask the town manager if maybe he can either identify someone would be a good contact or a follow-up, and you may be able to provide your contact information. Feel free to jot down name and phone number or email or whatever and slip it over here, and he'll have somebody look out for you.
Okay.
Sound good?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Grode. All right, that concludes our public forum time, so at this time I'll close public forum. And at this point, we now move into public hearings. Public hearing number 1 is a possible motion for the Balcom Olive House located at 206 South Salem Street, potentially being identified as a historic landmark in compliance with North Carolina Statute 160A-400.1, etc. Liz Lofton is presenting. Ms. Lofton.
Good evening. For both the first public hearing and the second, I will introduce the item and then turn it over to Jeremy Bradham with Capital Area Preservation to give more detail. So the Balcom Olive House is at 206 South Salem. If you're headed on Salem Street towards West Williams, Apex Baptist Church and SunTrust Bank are on your right. The Balcom Olive is significant for its architecture as one of Apex's most distinctive and intact examples of Queen Anne style. Landmark designation means the community recognizes this property as an important historic resource worthy of preservation. In addition, the owner of the house may apply for an annual deferral of 50% of the property taxes for as long as the property is a landmark designation and retains significance and integrity. Any substantial exterior design changes to the designated landmark are subject to design review and procedures by the Wake County Historic Preservation Commission. Planning staff recommends approval of the Balcom Olive House as a designated Apex landmark. So I will turn it over to Jeremy Bradham, who will give more detail on the house.
Good evening, Mayor Olive, Town Council. Mayor Olive, you're going to hear your last name spoken quite a bit in this presentation, so...
Very good, I'll
Again.
fact check you as we go.
Oh, no.
All right, so 206 South Salem Street is known as the Balcom Olive House, and for a long time we actually called it the Percy J. Olive House because that's what's referred to in the National Register report. But upon further review, it turns out the Balcom family did own it first and actually perhaps built the structure. So it is 2 blocks south of the commercial district here in Apex, just right down the road, and it's owned by Augustus Graham Shirley II. Sorry, Graham, I did not put the second on there, and Kimberly Shirley, his wife. All right, so there's its location and its parcel. Like nearby houses, the Balcom Olive House occupies a rectangular parcel and is set back from the street enough to have a small front yard and a larger rear yard. The south side yard accommodates a gravel drive that leads to a circa 1930 gabled roof garage in the southwest to the rear of the house, and a gravel parking area directly behind this rear addition. A low fence with squared picket posts encircles the front yard, which is a lawn edge with shrubs at the sides and foundation planting beds. A concrete walk leads from the sideway, bisecting the lawn. So we're going to pull up some historic images here. If any of y'all have the book, Pluck, Perseverance, and Paint, You might recognize this image from in there. This is a nice streetscape taken from Salem Street, South Salem Street, looking north towards where the Baptist Church is. You'll see there's a turret on this house, and there's not one in the previous picture, and we'll get to that in a second. But Percy J. Olive owned the parcel at the house located at 206 Salem Street, from 1900, at first jointly with his two brothers, Lindsay Shepard Olive and William Wade Olive. And then he eventually owned it on his own just 14 years later in 1914. The lot they purchased included most of the 200 blocks, so where the SunTrust is and all that, and these houses. In 1905, the Olive brothers sold the south portion of their parcel, measuring 275 feet by 181 feet, so you can kind of get the scale of the original lot, for $1,300. The 1910 census shows Percy J. Olive living in a house on Salem Street with his brother Lindsay, his widowed mother, and a boarder, 27-year-old Charles Balcom, a grocery store clerk. William W. Olive, the physician, his other brother, was living in Durham at the time. In 1914, Percy Olive's brothers sold their shares of undivided interest to Percy for $21.66, and that's $2,166. It seems likely then, according to previous deed records, it's referred to as the Balcom residence at that point. So here's a close-up of the house with that turret. Basically, the turret was an afterthought on a lot of these houses. You add them, and it's not structurally stable, so eventually they have to bring them down. So it is not present on the house today. Olive was actually an Apex-bred lawyer and sometime politician. I put quotes around sometime. He was the son of Henry C. and Lydia M. Olive. His father was an early Apex resident, one of the originals, and owner of the H.C. Olive Mercantile Store at 103 North Salem Street. In 1913, at age 38, Percy married Grace Mary Carter, a 23-year-old from nearby bustling Holly Springs. You can imagine back in the day. They had 4 children. Olive was elected to the State House of Representatives in 1904 and later again in 1916. He was also the attorney for the Wake County Board of Education, and he passed in 1931. From then it passed to his widow, who could no longer pay for the house anymore for the sake of brevity. I'll move forward, but actually Meredith College actually purchased the house shortly after that, and then it was sold to the Mainers in 1943. Should probably say, now this is when, in 2015, fast forward, Graham and Kim Shirley purchased the property from 2015 to 2016. They undertook a major rehab project that we were involved with per our contract with the town of Apex, and remodeled the space in the back for the modern kitchen area in the process as well. They added a 1.5-story addition to the back of the L and formed a courtyard open on the south end, and they removed all the alterations that kind of took away from the historic character of the building. The Balcom Olive House is simply described as a 1-story weatherboarded gabled front and wing dwelling with a wraparound porch. The frame house is enriched on its facade with a Queen Anne ornamentation, has an early or original single-style rear L and a 2016 1.5-story rear addition, as I mentioned. Located south of the Apex Commercial Business District, the house stands on a block mostly occupied by 1- and 2-story frame buildings built in the early 20th century during Apex's business boom. It stands out among its simply detailed neighbors. Decorative elements of the Balcom Olive House are concentrated at the front-facing gable and wraparound porch. It's got a box cornice with end returns, sawn barge board in the peak of the gable, fish scale shingles in the gabled end, and a hip roof bay window set in a weatherboarded wall. You have 2/2 windows throughout as well. Here's some of that detail work that you can see right there on the front porch with the turn ornamentation. The porch extends south from the front gabled end of the house and wraps around the south end of the dwelling. In addition to all this Queen Anne detailing, it does have tongue and groove floors and tongue and groove board ceilings, which is quite rare for the rest of the houses found here in Apex. The dwelling's entrance is a single-leaf paneled and partially glazed door with a transom above. The rear, and you'll see this is where some of the work, incredible work's been done on the house where they added the addition on the left side of that picture there. The middle section there, they turn into the kitchen. The windows all have the original wood sills and drip cap moldings, and the rear L has a shed roof porch across it that you see right there on the east side with simple square posts and enclosed section at its west end. And there's your 1.5-story addition. It mirrors the house and is not even visible. Most of you probably driven by this house and have no clue it's back there. When we work with property owners, and thank goodness for Apex's UDO that uses that small town character overlay, they were able to do a nice addition that you can't even see from the street, and it mirrors the house nicely. Here's the floor plan, so you see the addition and how it relates to the rest of the house. I'll briefly go on the inside for this, but this is your south front room. It's got unfluted columns, beautiful. It's turned into a nice library now, but nice high ceilings in here, though. I believe they're right at 11-foot ceilings. So typical craftsman-style details, actually in a Queen Anne-style house, but most of it dates to the early 20th century. And there's some more pictures. Here's your entry hallway right here. There's your front door. That room that you just saw in the last picture is actually the room looking this way on the right, so it's the front room when you walk in on the left. So you see how high those ceilings are. That's what we were amazed when we walked in this house, is how high the actual beadboard ceilings were. And this is the front right room of the house, the north side of the house. As you can see, they've done a nice job. I would like to point out, since this is going on record, this is great. This is not called, those boards you see right there are, you might have heard the phrase, my mind just went blank completely. It's actually, we call it just flush panel board or things like that. What's, shiplap. Yeah, there you go. See, Wes knew it before. Yeah, that's the thing. So I do want to go, thank you. See, the problem is I've been trying to clear it from my mind, and now it's back in there. But the point is, shiplap doesn't exist. It's a word made up on that TV show, so. I had to get on the record saying that, so.
That's right.
And this is your contributing garage, which dates to about 1930. It was moved about 20 feet on the back of the property, but it still is a contributing nice piece of architecture. So the significant statement: the circa 1880 Balcom Olive House is significant for its architecture, as one of APEC's most distinctive and intact examples of early Queen Anne style. The staff recommendation is that staff recommends the Apex Town Council designate the Balcom Olive House located at 206 South Salem Street in Apex as an Apex Historic Landmark and adopt the associated ordinance. At its meeting on March 13th, 2018, the Wake County Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended that the Apex Town Council designate the Balcom Olive House as an Apex Historic Landmark. Oops. And that's it with that one.
All right, is there any other presentation, or should we go straight to public hearing? Okay, all right. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Not seeing a name on the sheet, we will also close the public hearing. And at this time, refer the matter back to council. The question before us is, do we want to have a motion to designate this house as a historic landmark?
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? I will weigh in real quick. So Percy J. Olive was a representative to Raleigh for his district at the time. His father, Henry Calvin Olive, was not only the founder of H.C. Olive Company, but also the first mayor of Apex. There you go.
I left that open for you.
Thank you very much. I support this.
I want to add that my wife and I walked to downtown from our house on warm nights and on Fridays, and we'd pass by that every time, and I'm always looking over and marveling at it, and now I appreciate knowing more about it, so this is great.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, when we did the tour with the former Secretary of Cultural Resources, Natural and Cultural Resources, was hoping that all levels of government could continue to support people who want to be caretakers of the history and of the homes and businesses who kind of tell the history that so many of us don't know or forgotten. So thank you for the way you presented also in the packet. So I'm really pleased to do this and hope we can continue to do that. So thank you for what you're doing for our town.
Mayor, are these, is this in your lineage? Is this?
So my great-grandfather's third cousin was Percy. Yeah.
Okay.
I did the math ahead of time.
Yeah.
I knew somebody would probably ask that question.
Great-grandfather's third cousin.
Yep, yep. Yep. All right, if there's no other discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that's unanimous, and thank you, Mr. Shirley. Looks like a great house. Maybe I'll come knock on your door sometime. All right. With that, we'll now move to public hearing number 2. This is also a historic landmark presentation for the Upchurch Williams House on Roberts Road, and Liz Lofton.
So this is the Upchurch Williams House. It's located at on Roberts Road. If you're coming from Jinks Road, headed north on Roberts Road, right before you cross 540. It's there. The Upchurch Williams House possesses local architectural significance, as well as preserved an increasingly rare example of the traditional Queen Anne colonial revival in rural Wake County. So Capital Area Preservation currently owns this house, and it is currently on the market. So if you're interested in a historic house for sale, this is...
Looks like a fixer-upper.
Yes.
Some shiplap in there?
You're gonna have to sign off on it.
I have stated before, the landmark designation means the community recognizes this property as an important historic resource, and any exterior changes will be will have to be subject to approval by Wake County Historic Preservation Commission. And planning staff does recommend approval that the Upchurch William House be designated as an Apex landmark. And I'll turn it over to Jeremy, who'll give more detail on the house.
I'm back. So this one, as Capital Area Preservation representing CAP, and our president CEO couldn't make it, he's actually ill right now. So we're presenting this one as both the owners of this house, actually, and obviously we would always be presenting this because we're staff of the Wake County Historic Preservation Commission, so we're presenting this for both reasons. But this is interesting. Some of you might remember this moved in December of 2015. There was a famous picture on the front of the News and Observer crossing Highway 540 and cars slamming on brakes at 75 miles an hour to throw it in reverse and get pictures. So it's good to always create dangerous situations for people on the highway. So it is located at 7213 Roberts Road, which is just down the road from the new high school, where Apex High School is at the current moment. And there's the parcel for it. Now this is on land historically associated with the farm, which was just over 100 acres historically. This was actually part of the tobacco fields. You can still see in the woods the trenching that was done for the fields. And it was planted with trees until we had to move the house. So, let me go back here. Sorry, I apologize. So, local Apex area farmer Golden Allman Upchurch, he was born in 1860 and died in 1929. He began the acquisition of all this land in this part of Wake County for his future home site in January of 1883 with the purchase of first a 50-acre tract from his father, G.A. Upchurch Sr., for just $150. He later added 119 acres to the farm and began construction on the house that we see today. Upchurch built this traditional Queen Anne colonial revival style house at the northeast corner of Roberts Road in present-day 540 around 1905. At his death, the house and surrounding land passed to his daughter Zola Upchurch Williams, who lived in it with her family, and the house remained in the Williams family until 2015, when Capital Area Preservation required the building after it was threatened with demolition. I'd like to point out the same day that this moved, on December 15, 2015, we landmarked the James Madison Williams house. James Madison's son married Zola Upchurch. That's where the Williams name comes from. So it is strongly connected, and you might, if you go look at that house that's right there at the Chatham County line, you'll see a turret in the dead center of it. It's exactly like this. That one just was done to supposedly outdo this one. So, family feud when the daughter-in-law's family has a nice house.
They literally one-upped them.
Right, exactly. One up, yeah, it did, exactly. Touche. So we relocated the house. Here's an image taken of the house crossing 540. Quite an endeavor. We finished stabilizing the house and restoring it at the end of last summer, and it is prepared and ready for sale with a preservation easement and rehabilitation agreement. So should it be designated as an Apex Historic Landmark, a future owner would not only get potentially the 50% tax deferral, it's also going to be guaranteed in perpetuity because we're putting a preservation easement on it, which is the most ironclad way to save a historic structure. So a little bit about the architectural description. The two-story double-pile frame house has basically a symmetrical facade with shallow projecting bays, a wraparound single-story porch, and a single-story wings at side elevations at the back. The main block of the house is a high-hipped roof, while bays and wings are gabled. All roofs have their box cornices, and those at the gables have end-returns. The house stands on a continuous brick foundation, but the porch rests on brick piers, and those are all actually were able to be salvaged, the majority of those original bricks from the house. Slender Tuscan wood columns, solid wood might I add, support the hip roof, which is sheathed with replacement 5V metal roofing that replicates the original porch roofing material. The dwelling's exterior are all original weatherboard with vertical lap fish scale shingles at several gable ends. And what's interesting is this house was completely covered in vinyl, and so all these details were lost for the last 30 or 40 years, so this was all uncovered during the process. The two interior corbel brick chimneys from the south rise through the main hip roof. Here's a nice angle from, and you can see the projecting L off the back of the house, and that had to be completely redone. But there was where you're looking at right now used to be a kitchen. It was added in the 1970s, and we had to remove that because it looked awful. So here's a nice floor plan drawing that was made of the house. It does have a 3-bay facade and reflects this transition from the late Queen Anne, which we saw in the previous landmark report, to the more refined Colonial Revival, which was more symmetrical and getting back to the big heavy columns and things like that. The interior features a similar floor plan for the period. Living space is organized around a center hall with 4 rooms on each floor of the main body of the house. A straight run, closed stringer rail rises from the front of the hall to the back and features turn balusters and a square inset panel newel post. Rooms have fireplaces at the common interior walls, sharing the interior chimneys. And that is the stair hall right there. There was a bathroom in the back that had to be removed, but you can see this hallway is quite wide. I believe it was right at 13 feet wide, which is pretty remarkable for this time period. That's what I wrote right here. The interiors are remarkable for its mostly intact pine floors, walls, and ceilings. All are historically unpainted, but the sheathing is highly decorative even without paint. Beadboard of varying widths is laid diagonally in the 4 rooms and the center hall of the first floor. In each room there's wainscoting that contrasts with the upper wall sheathing, and the 2 areas are separated by just a molded chair rail. There's another shot right there of the hallway. In some ways it's the wainscoting's laid at sort of an opposite as it was. We would call this almost this pattern a chevron beadboard. It's very common in this part of Wake County, and we've been in lots of historic houses. It really is in the apex kind of Cary, Holly Springs area. It's not in the northern part of the county, which is kind of unique. This roof right here, the ceilings are also beadboard, but the most notable one being in the front room with the cutaway bay. So it's the front left of the house. It's divided in with molding into 4 quadrants. This matches identically with that other house, the other James Madison Williams house I was talking about with the turret above it. So we believe the same carpenters actually did that work. The mantels feature typical Queen Anne features, including overmantels with mirrors, as well as manufactured decorative elements like garlands, turn pilasters, and molded trim. I stripped that mantel myself. It was a lot of fun. So, the upstairs room, and you'll notice with this picture, I don't know if it's kind of hard to tell with the lighting. It's the second floor was completely unpainted, so it's been unpainted since 1905. We really believe there were only 2 layers of paint ever put in the house, and they weren't started until the 1970s. So they have horizontally laid beadboards contrasting with the chevron beadboard downstairs. One back room, the second floor, was never actually finished, with only the flooring laid and framing exposed with the construction of the house. It does have original carbide light fixtures. You can kind of see it in this picture, and I'll do a close-up. I think I have a close-up. I do. But this is historically would have been the master bedroom upstairs. That room that with that door right there was actually unfinished. We're not sure why they never finished it, but it's literally exposed to the rafters 110 years later. This is a close-up of the original carbide light fixture and the original hardware found throughout the house, which is just immaculate. And the thing, this house is a few days away from being burned to the ground, but thanks to Apex's demolition ordinance, we were able to swoop in and work with the owner, who was more than happy to see it saved in memory of his wife who had passed away. But are you all familiar with carbide light fixtures, where you mix the mixture? It was only used for about 15, 20 years. It's like a compound. They would mix water in there, and then it would go through a hose and come in the house. Very dangerous with a bunch of heart pine. Very dangerous, but maybe that's why they stopped using it. So we're glad the house is still standing, but pretty unique features all throughout. In terms of
the flame had a nice color to it.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So yeah, it's just like the miners' lights. Those are carbide lights that the coal miners in West Virginia use. So for the significance statement, I got that backwards. The Upchurch Williams House is an excellent example of transitional Queen Anne style, Colonial Revival style, built throughout Apex and other parts of Wake County around the turn of the last century. The house retains integrity of design, workmanship, materials, feeling, and association, and remains on land associated with its builder, Golden Almond Upchurch Jr. Staff recommendation: staff recommends that the Apex Town Council designate the Upchurch Williams House, located at 7213 Roberts Road in Apex, as an Apex Historic Landmark and adopt the associated ordinance. At its meeting on December 12, 2017, the Wake County Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended that the Apex Town Council designate the Upchurch Williams House as an Apex Historic Landmark. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Liz, if there's nothing else, I'll go to public. All right, so we'll go to public hearing and open the public hearing. At this time, there's no names on the sheet, so I'll close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council for possible motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion in a couple seconds. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out and taking care of that. Picture says 1,000 words, so thanks for the multiple pictures.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, this time we'll now move to public hearing number 3. This is a public hearing and possible motion for the ordinance on question of annexation. This is related to the Pulte Home Company's Greenmore Open Space and Brook Pine Trail. So let me turn this over to Amanda Bunce, and she will tell us like it is.
So this is a small piece that is part of the Greenmore subdivision. When the subdivision was approved, this was still owned by NCDOT, which made it virtually impossible to annex at the time. So the transfer of the property took place after all approvals were received, and so now annexation can occur. It's about 1,600 of an acre, and staff recommends approval.
Great. All right, any questions for Amanda before we open the public hearing? All right, I'll open the public hearing. No one signed up to speak, so I'll close the public hearing. And this time I'll turn to council for possible motion.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we have unanimously passed the annexation of that tiny little triangle. That takes us now through the public hearing. We now move to old business. Number one, this is a possible motion for providing the sale and issuance of $23 million, and we need a resolution for that, of the 2018 general obligation public improvement bonds and $1.5 million of 2018 refunding bonds. Is Vance Holloman presenting, or are we going to present without him?
He is. He just walked out. I think he mistimed that last public hearing. He might have thought it was going a little longer.
Oh, that's all right.
I think he shut down to go to the restroom, actually.
All right. Do we want to do without him?
Well, you can, but...
Would that hurt his pride? Because we could wait. We could wait if he's coming right back.
Trick on him?
I mean, he wasn't running out to an emergency, right? For real.
No.
He wasn't running out to an emergency.
No, sir.
So he should be right back presently, as my grandmother used to say.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. We'll wait.
Should we cheer when he walks in?
Yeah,
I think we should play trick on him.
you should be injustifiably embarrassed.
Yeah. So what's,
There he is.
You're up.
You're up.
There we go.
Mr. Holloman?
time's a wasted.
Is there a finance director in the house?
There's somebody that can, yeah.
We have a fiscal emergency.
It's been extremely quick.
It was the quickest.
Just for you.
I apologize for taking the council's time up, but you have before you old business item number 1. This relates to the upcoming sale of our general obligation bonds. Actually, we have 2 series being sold. First, $23 million public improvement bonds. $20 million of that's going to be for parks and recreation. $3 million for street improvements. Also, sell up to $1.5 million of refunding bonds. Again, that will be a current refunding. Advance refunding is no longer allowed. The sale is scheduled for April 17th. The resolutions you have, there are actually 2 of them. They're continuous. The second resolution begins around page 15, but the resolution will actually authorize the sale of these bonds. It's necessary for that reason. It's going to address issuance and post-issuance matters, and it's also going to describe the form of the bond. In addition, you have in your packet a copy of the preliminary official statement, which is referenced throughout these resolutions for your information.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Holloman? Nope. All right. I'll ask, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
All right, we have a motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that's unanimous. We have now approved the bond and the refunding.
Yes, sir. And again, I apologize for the delay.
No, that's all right. It's all right.
Wait a whole minute.
We had to April 1st, because it would have been worse.
It gave us all open mic time.